one is often having, in the beginning, dreams. My father nearly died twice. He was on the brink of death, and he was in a coma for long periods of time. By whatever fate, he came back out of that coma. And because he was very interested in the subject of death, as I was, he reported to me, as I queried him very closely, of what had happened. And with his scientific orientation, he had remembered it all, of what had happened when he was on the brink of death and in this coma. The dreams are different than the ordinary dreams that you have. They are battles of resolution. That is, you try to resolve the unresolved things in your life that have gone before. You've heard tales of the person's life flashing before them. Well, there's some basis for that. Recent research has shown that. My father also brought back this report, although his was in comatose and wasn't a sudden death coming on. And so it went on for hours and days. And he worked through this process of trying to resolve past relationships, lies that he told, people that he had cheated, and on and on. He confessed to the whole thing. Which is the point of confession at the point of death. If one has the opportunity to do this before going into coma, it is of great advantage too. Well, if you're not going to admit it during the rest of your life, confess at the end. The Catholics have a right approach to this. The idea of absolving people of their sins is all right if you in your heart feel that you have that power. But if you don't really in your heart feel that you have the power to absolve somebody of their sins, that's not saying anything about it. The final forgiveness comes in their own hearts. But if people can confess all the things that were left undone, be sure to tell so-and-so something, tell Mary that I didn't run off with her husband, he came on his own accord. All those things that weigh on the mind and tie a person to this world should be released. If not, they often do happen in a coma state. And even though a person be in a coma, you can talk to them. You sit on their right side and talk into their right ear. You don't have to lean up real close. You just sit there and talk to them. And assume that they're understanding what you're saying. Almost always they will receive it. Even though the body is in coma. If you have your attention on them as a individual, spiritual entity, address that being and say, in this period, let go of all your attachments to life. Make the decisions to die. And if necessary, speak to all the people that you have incomplete things with and complete them. And on an etheric level, they will do that. Because the events that are happening are not just dreams. They're true events on the etheric plane. On the etheric level, these communications, these confessions can be completed. Although they're not completed on the physical level, the other people somehow know. Somehow. Some people much clearer than others. If you are not in a position to be near the body, maybe somebody's 100 miles or 1,000 miles or 10,000 miles away, you can still talk to them. Although you should speak out loud keeping them in mind, you say, hey, Henry, you're in a coma. You're about to die. And then you can give whatever advice is appropriate. Also, you can receive the message from them. I don't know if you feel that this is all imagination or not. But I'm telling you what I and most of the world believes is true. The Egyptians believed this was true. And most of the civilizations, East and West, have worked in this manner. But there is the etheric plane. And you can talk to people, and they can talk to you. All you have to do is just go ahead and do it. Assume. Say, hey, Henry. Well, how do I know if he's listening? How do you know he's not? If you want to deal with that kind of knowledge, go to the university and study. But if you want to just help somebody in their death experience, just go ahead and assume that you have them. No harm can be done. And a lot of good might be done. Now, this death experience has been treated a lot of different ways by different cultures, but there's certain common threads that go with all of them. The Egyptians, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Tibetans, the Hindus, the Buddhists, all of them have the feeling that the dead should be fed. Now that may sound really strange. That you give them an offering of food to the dead. Now why is this? Well, it has a basis. Certainly, the flesh body is dead and it doesn't need food. But the etheric body is going, and the person still has not fully realized that they are a spiritual entity and that the etheric body is perfect. And so they feel that they need to eat. Well, they can't eat the actual food, but they can eat the essence of it. So if you do offer the food, they take the essence right out of it. Now what is that essence? The essence is prana. It's the vital part. It's the life part that's in the food. The living part. And they take that. And this is why in India, when you go to buy flowers in the shop, they won't let you smell them first. You have to buy them. Then you can smell them. Because if you smell them, you're taking all the good part. You're stealing the prana, the vital energy, right out of the flowers. And then give back the flowers. And then no good. You've got all the good part out. The rest is just the hump. Well, this is what happens with the newly deceased. So, on the point of death, other cultures have offered food on some sort of an altar to the dead. If this is too heavy for you, well, all right. If it's too different a tradition, all right. But I'm informing you about it. You do what you like. But it is a common thread through all the societies, and currently being done in most of them, to give gifts. What are the gifts for? They're not going to take the gold ring, but they're going to take the feeling of you giving the gold ring. Well, a totally liberated deceased who has left the body and totally liberated doesn't need any of this business about food and rings and gifts and kind feelings and this sort of thing. But someone who is not fully liberated does need them. Because they think they do. Because they still have a mind that is telling them that they have to have these things. Unfortunately, most of them don't even realize that they're dead. So if nothing else, tell them they're dead. Henry, I hate to bring the news to you, but you've been dead about a day and a half. their experience is just one of like a dream, a long dream. And so they don't notice that, you see. Because they miss this point of liberation, this instantaneous truth. And they started to dream. And they don't realize what's happened. They think it's just a dream. Or they don't even notice that is a dream. Many times you dream and you don't know you're dreaming. Right? You just think it's something that's happening. Well, this is even more true because when the body is dead, it doesn't move and there's no attraction to come back to it, but the mind is doing its work in the so-called dream. It's actually the etheric plane happenings that are going on. But they don't recognize this. Don't tell them. This is assistance to the newly dead. Well, if this was all there was to it, the task would be relatively easy. It's a matter of information, it's a matter of communicating with them, it's a matter of speaking to them, even though they're newly dead. You sit on their, whether in a coma or even after their body's dead, you still sit to their right side, speaking into their right ear, and say, "Hey, Henry." But then after this first phase, after the first phase of death has happened, and if they've reached liberation from the knowledge that you've given them, you don't have to worry about them. They'll take care of themselves. But if they haven't, then they enter the second phase. And the first phase here I've called the phase of the light. You could call it the phase of truth if you like. And if that is the chance that you have. But if that is missed, then their mind begins to operate. And when the mind begins to operate, the movie starts. All the old movies start on the television set of the mind. And this is the beginning of the after-death experience. This goes on for about 7 to 50 days. Now, there's been some occult information that people get reincarnated every 1100 years or 800 years or 400 years or you name it. Each occultist has got a different view about it. But the information I'm giving you has been given by totally enlightened beings, people who have reached complete liberation. The reason why certain occultists think that there's long periods of time between lifetimes is because they can't remember all their lives. They remember the dramatic ones or the ones in which they were outstanding people, and they don't remember the times when they were just an old farmer plowing the field somewhere. There's a quote here from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, form of God, is saying to his disciple Arjuna, "Many lives, Arjuna, you and I have lived. I remember them all, but you do not." If you remember them all, and you're fully liberated and enlightened, then you know what happens completely in the after-death experience. And normally it lasts, well, it could be 3, 5, 7, or up to 49 days. The Japanese say 50. Well, depends on how you count. It's a natural cycle that takes place. And during this time, from after the phase of the light or the truth is over, it's the phase, you enter the phase of the mind and all the movies. And during that time is an opportunity again to achieve liberation, in spite of the fact that the mind is working. And after we take a break now for lunch, I think it's an hour, and we're going to go through that second and third phases. The third phase is the phase of re-entry into a body and rebirth. The process which I've labeled effort, and it's the phase of coming back into a body. And it's quite an adventure. And so don't eat too much after lunch. 1 hour from now.
This has been a discourse on dealing with the moments of death by Yogeshwar Muni. This tape recording is presented by the Sanatana Dharma Foundation, 2970 Russell Street, Berkeley, California, 94705, United States of America.